All right, assalamu alaikum.
Wa
And
alaikum assalam.
welcome to the Project Olive Branch podcast.
Finally.
It's taken some time to get everything up and running, but here we are. This is our official, unofficial setup with our TPS coffee mugs. But of course, we drink tea. So, yes, this is going to be the first of many episodes, and the goal of this podcast is for us to address a lot of our community concerns, have informal conversations about all the things that are impacting the citizens of Toronto, and also us as police officers that work in the city of Toronto. So, that's how we're going to get started.
We got a huge lineup of visitors and guests. So we're obviously going to learn from them, learn about what's happening in our communities. And this way, I guess, the community can understand and can also see the police perspective as well. So you'll get both sides of it. So hopefully it turns out well. I know Farhan's a great host, and I'm sure we'll do well, inshallah.
Inshallah. No, this is my first time doing anything like this. So you know what they say, right? You're at your midlife crisis as a man, where you either buy yourself a really fancy Porsche or you start a podcast. And as you can tell, based on my budget, we decided to go with the podcast option.
Well, I thought you had a podcast before. That's why I thought you were. This whole idea. I thought this was all you. But
I'm just an unofficial food blogger. If you follow my Instagram, So here we are. Why don't we get started? Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what your background is with the Toronto Police Service, and let's go from there.
Yeah. So my name is Police Constable Haroon Siddiqui. I'm currently out of the Community Partnership Engagement Unit. That's the unit that we work in as the Muslim Liaison Officer. Started off in 2005 at 13 Division, which is located on Allen Road in Eglinton. Did approximately 14 years there, and got this opportunity. The funny thing is, when this opportunity came up, they mentioned, hey, do you want to be the Muslim Liaison Officer? And I'm like, yeah, for sure. Why not? This is exactly why I joined policing. They go, this is a brand new position. No one's ever done it before, and this is gonna be you. And I'm like, I'm 100% down for it. So when I found out about this unit actually existed probably years, at least 10 plus years way before my time. But that's something that I realized that needed to change within the service, that, we need to and don't get me wrong, social media wasn't a big thing back then. So I understand it must have been difficult for those liaison officers to express their positions. But
that's right, you're from the Facebook days.
Yeah, exactly. So things have changed now, alhamdulillah. And I think service-wide, I think most people know what me and Farhan do. And it's been going great. And now we got this podcast. So this is going to be now, going around to the communities, and people will know exactly what we do and what our office does. So
good.
So 20 years now in the service, and going strong.
That's amazing. That's good.
What about you, Farhan? Talk about yourself.
All right.
which won't be an issue.
So we have a running joke in our unit where I don't know when to stop talking and Haroon doesn't know when to start. So we kind of balance each other out. So it's been good. So yes, by all means, tell me when to just zip it when I've taken up 37 minutes of the podcast.
I'll give you the nudge. I don't know if the camera will catch it, but
yeah, I think it'll be fairly obvious based on your facial expressions. So yes, Constable Farhan Ali. I've been with the Toronto Police since 2008. I'm in my 17th year of policing. 16 years of my policing career were at 53 Division, where I worked on the front line, and most recently I worked as a neighborhood community officer for 7 years in the Thorncliffe Park community, where I really got to learn the fundamentals and the benefits of being in the community as a neighborhood officer, and really the importance of every contact and why it matters when you're dealing with the public. So once I did that for 7 years, I thought, you know what, I want to be able to do everything I'm doing in this neighborhood of Thorncliffe Park, and I want to do it citywide, if not province-wide. So obviously with growth comes challenges, and when this opportunity came up, with everything that's been going on around the world in the last year, there have been a lot of geopolitical issues that have had an impact on Torontonians and Canadians as a whole. I know our chief of police, Myron Demkew. He is a very passionate leader, and he obviously sees what's happening, and he felt that there was a need for more work for us to do as police officers to cater to the communities that we serve, namely the Muslim community. He identified and observed that there was a need for us to be able to do more for our community. So that's where I came into the picture here with the Community Partnership Engagements Unit. And once I joined in here, we got together, Haroon and I, and we drafted up an operational plan for this project, which we called Project Olive Branch.
That's right.
And the idea behind Olive Branch was just to obviously come up with strategies that we can use and implement to better serve the Muslim communities in Toronto. And our outreach obviously has many different levels to it. Community engagement is huge, and for us to be able to find out what the needs of our community are, we have to reach them in ways where they are looking to connect with us. So I found social media was a very effective way to communicate with people. I've been a social media officer for about 3 years now. I mostly do a lot of my outreach through Instagram, and I've connected with a lot of amazing people, got a lot of amazing work done because of it. So I figured, why not leverage social media and start a podcast? And this was actually Haroon's idea, because he had mentioned to me that he had been thinking for some time about starting up a podcast. And, one thing led to another, and here we are.
I'm glad it's with you, because sometimes I'd be speechless. So I'm glad to have you with me. I'm glad you're my partner. And so far, we've done a lot of great work. And this podcast, I think, is going to really assist the service, and two, the community as well. So
that's right.
I really think this is the new thing. You know what I mean? So Instagram, I think, is getting old. I don't know, Farhan, how you feel about that, but
I think TikTok isn't really my generation of things. I think I'm a little too old for that. So we're gonna stick to what we know, and hopefully, this podcast can be something. The whole premise is that we want to be able to communicate with people. So it's not just going to be Haroon and I every episode. We're going to get guests to come in.
Absolutely.
And we're going to get some perspective from community members, from community leaders, and also leadership within our own organization to come in and speak to why we do things the way we do them and what the wisdom is behind it. Because a lot of times there is a disconnect between the why of what we do and the community at large that may not have the context that would paint a better picture for them. So that is kind of what we're trying to achieve with this podcast here.
And we'll be taking down questions. So we're gonna probably in advance tell you a topic that we're gonna be discussing before we actually do it. So if you have any questions and you want to post them, you can post them through Instagram or through our Instagram account. We have a Project Olive Branch Instagram account.
We do, yeah.
Where you can send out some questions, or if there's certain topics that you want us to discuss, we can definitely find the experts to bring as well, and we can discuss that. So.
Yeah, and actually, while we're here, as I was taking a sip of my tea here, and thanks to my friend Sev for hooking up this Turkish apple tea. It's delicious. This is a coffee guy here, but I'm going to convert him and make him a tea guy as well.
I'll drink anything really. It's tea. This is my. I just had my coffee, but this is. I haven't tried the tea yet because I don't want to make that face while I'm drinking like it's too hot. So I don't.
You'll drink anything as long as it's halal, right?
Exactly.
As long as it's halal.
It has to be halal. This is a halal program.
This is a halal. We're halal people. So, okay. So actually, while we're here, why don't you tell us about the Muslim Liaison Officer position and what you've been doing in the time that you've been here?
Yeah, so as a Muslim liaison, basically just consider us the middleman between the community and the Toronto Police Service. So anytime there's messaging that needs to be put out from the service, it would go through me, and I would end up telling all our community leaders to send out that message, and vice versa. A lot of the community members would let me know of a certain situation that's happening within our community, and I would bring it up to our command or to our unit to discuss that this issue is happening currently in this division or in this area, and how we can help resolve it. Now, on top of that, we also have a Muslim Consultative Committee. This Muslim Consultative Committee is comprised of approximately 14 members, community leaders that we meet up every month. and we discuss issues that are happening within our community and how the Toronto Police, along with our community leaders, how we can help resolve those issues. So we've done a lot of work over the years. And there's other stuff that they've assisted with as well. So like the hijab, having a police officer wearing hijab, that was obviously that was discussed with the Muslim Consultative Committee, and they provided advice before actually launching it out. And alhamdulillah, just recently we had our first female hijabi, police officer, female police officers. So so far it's been the committee is actually one of the most, I would say, because I'm the liaison for it, but I would say the Muslim Consultative Committee is probably the most active consultative committee that we have in the service.
Okay. And I can tell
good group of people.
I have joined into those meetings with those committees, and Haroon really does run this show. So you would think he was someone really, really important in that group. But no, it's a truly great work that you've been doing there. And, look at us patting each other on the back. But no, truly, there is a lot of good work that needs to be done. And a lot of times, and I find even within our organization, as with any other organization, all it takes is one person to take the initiative to actually get out there. And if you have the passion to do it, then obviously you're going to get the results for it too, right? What you put in is what you get out.
So a lot of things. So everything was smooth, and then once October 7th hit, that's where a lot of it has changed, and a lot of it had to do with our community members losing trust in the police, and that's why Farhan's here as well, because obviously the service seen a need that we have Muslim. If you look at our Muslim community, it's one of the fastest growing religions in the world. We have so many Muslims here in Canada, and just in Toronto and the GTA, that obviously our command noticed that there's a need for it, and even I would say even me and you, it's not enough for the amount of Muslims that we actually have in Toronto. But at least it's a start.
You're always enough, Haroon. You're always enough. But no, you're right. There is a lot of work to do, and I've seen that since I've come into the office in February. So I do agree there is a lot of work to do.
So that's our goal, and that's why we have this Project Olive Branch. Yeah. And the chief has obviously had some certain things that he wanted, certain goals, and one of them is this. So that's why we're here.
Okay. And actually, I wanted to touch on something that you had mentioned there. Obviously, October 7th, I'm sure everyone is aware of what's happening in the world. And obviously, global conflict does have an impact locally on people that live here based on their demographic, based on the religions they follow, political beliefs. Everything has an impact. So for us, what I realized since October 7th happened, there were a lot of things that the community was trying to communicate to me as a neighborhood officer. And I obviously I heard about the concerns that everyone had. And while we do the best job that we can, there are still ways that we can improve, not just as police officers, but also as an organization. So some of the challenges that were identified, like you said about losing public trust in the Muslim community specifically, that's also another part of the reason that this project all took place. So one thing that I wanted to mention that we were able to do as just Muslim police officers, and not even because of the position that we're in, because I wasn't in this position back then, but we had a conversation with each other to say, hey, what's the temperature? How are you feeling? How are these events impacting you?
That's right.
Not just as a person, but also as a police officer.
That's right.
And what can we do to check in on other fellow police officers that are also probably experiencing the same thing? So we sat down, we had a conversation, we reached out to a few of our other Muslim colleagues, and we found that the sentiment was the same. Everyone was feeling
the morale was down.
The morale was down, obviously, because of obviously global conflict. It's painful to see the things that we see, but also to feel like there's nothing we can say or do to help the people that are obviously going through challenges around the world. So one of the things that we got together and did was we collectively gathered together all of our Muslim colleagues, and we sat down, we had a meeting. And we had a meeting. This meeting was very important because it was an opportunity for us to communicate our thoughts and feelings. And our command officers, namely our police chief, Myron Demkew, was a very big part of that meeting. And he was actually very open to having that meeting with us. And I wanted to highlight that because I think it did a lot to show us as members of the police service that our voices matter, that what we think and feel is important. And there were a few recommendations that we had made through that meeting, one of which was standard training modules.
That's right.
To be sent out to the service, and every uniform member, which after the module was approved and completed, was actually made mandatory for all members, whether you're civilian or uniform. And the course was called The Foundations of Islam and How to Combat Islamophobia. So I think that type of course is the first of its kind in my time of being a police officer for almost 16 and a half years. And I think that there really is a true reflection of the fact that the Toronto Police Service is a progressive police service, where we don't just do things for the sake of doing them because that's how they've always been done, but we're looking to adapt and change and implement new things to cater to the needs of the community and the membership at large.
Yeah, and then speaking of membership, so far you were probably the most, I think, that made a big impact when I had that conversation with you. And I don't want. Obviously, it's a sensitive topic, but I noticed the feelings that you were going through, and that's what really made me think that if it's Farhan, there must be so many others. Because how many Muslims do we have working for the Toronto Police Service?
Absolutely,
and not just uniform, but non-uniform as well.
Yeah.
So,
and sorry, just to mention, it wasn't just Muslim officers. I did speak with other officers that didn't adhere to the Muslim faith that still had those feelings of unrest and sadness. So yeah.
So and that's why when we had that meeting, yes, majority were Muslim, but there were a lot of others that were affected by this, and it was actually open to everybody. But it was word of mouth. It was a short notice, but approaching command and having that meeting, and for the chief to accept it was a huge part for our community. And I'm glad it worked out the way it worked out. The chief had accepted all our recommendations, and so far we've almost accomplished all of them. And that's what brought obviously Olive Branch as well. And a big support was also from Superintendent Mandeep Mann, who's a current superintendent at 31 Division, but also the co-chair for the Muslim Consultative Committee as well.
That's right.
And at that time, he was working with the chief, Myron Demkew, as his executive officer, and it helped a lot because he understood the stuff that was happening in the Muslim community. So when I brought it up to him, he's like, I understand what you're going through, and I understand what the memberships are going through, and I'm sure the community is going through, because he's in between both. Mm-hmm. So for him to say, hey, Haroon, why don't you go speak to the chief and express what community members or what our membership are going through, which mostly was from Farhan. And just through word of mouth, we had over 50 members come in.
On short notice, within a week. And, we had 4 officers that helped develop a PowerPoint presentation within that week. Yourself, Azim, and there was, who else was there? Myself, you, Azim, and Paul Qureshi.
Paul Qureshi was, he was at the most senior at that time. Yeah. But it was also supported by the South and West this is by the South Asian ISN as well.
That's right.
So it turned out well. We also had an imam come in from outside to basically give a perspective of Islam and how what our perspective is, and what because a lot of things after October 7th were obviously there was a few things that maybe the service didn't know about. Our command, Muslims know about it, other people know about it, but it was the education piece, and that was a huge part. And we didn't expect results right away. Honestly, we didn't expect any results right away. But I guess the command realized how important this was, and these results, these recommendations were done immediately. I was getting phone calls left, right, and center. At that time, you weren't there, so I was getting phone calls from the college. I was getting phone calls from everyone saying, the chief just told me to call you and find out, okay, these recommendations, how are we going to do this? And myself and Farhan were a huge part in building that. The education piece, and now that education piece is actually going. I don't know if I'm going to mention it, but it's apparently going all across all services.
Oh wow, okay.
So our CPCAN module that we created, CPCAN is a
Canadian Police
knowledge. So it's like a all services basically use this platform for online for educating their services, and each service has their own requirements.
That's right. It's a repository of approved courses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now this is going basically countrywide, and a lot of services are interested in how we did it. And instead of creating their own, they're going to use ours.
Amazing.
So
well,
you're going to see me and Farah are going to be famous within the police service
realm
industry.
Yeah. And honestly, that just speaks to the fact that, all it takes is one person or two people just have a conversation, bounce some ideas off each other and then say, you know what, I think this is important because there's probably other people out there that are thinking and feeling the same things. And it's not until one person speaks up that it gains traction. And sometimes all it takes is just one person with an idea to present it. And then, now here we are. So very, very grateful for that opportunity.
And there's a lot more work to be done.
Yeah.
This is not stopping now. So we're every day we're thinking of new ideas, new things to talk about. So new things to discuss, new ideas for the command. So we're on a roll right now.
Yeah, alhamdulillah for that. So that in kind of a nutshell is kind of our journey as to how we got into the positions that we're in, how Project Olive Branch was created, and what the premise and the purpose of it was. And obviously, this is only one part and one branch of Olive Branch. There are other parts to it. We do have other initiatives that have to do with youth engagement. So we've been doing a lot of that since we got into this position. So community events, meeting up with the Muslim student associations, and just building a network and a connection with a lot of the stakeholders in our community and also the future generation of our communities that are going to be the leaders, the movers, the shakers, the ones that are really going to have an impact on the direction of where the world's going to go. So to be able to connect with these young, passionate youth, I think is huge. And for us to build positive relationships, because I think one of the big challenges that we face as police officers in this day and age is what I like to call bias by proxy. And I've experienced that in many regards where it comes to people having their preconceived notions about police officers just based on the lived experience of another person that they may know or trust. And while that there is benefit to be gained from the knowledge that someone has as their lived experience, doesn't necessarily mean that is the only way to look at things. So what I like to encourage people to do, and why we do a lot of our outreach, is so that people that haven't had any interaction with police, that may have preconceived notions, can now have more of an informed opinion about, hey, what is it that the police actually do? Are they really here just to give me a ticket or arrest me or infringe upon my charter rights? And there is usually that big disconnect. And I find in most cases, because not everyone's going to be on the same wavelength, in most cases, people are able to look at us after the fact and say, hey, you're actually no different than me. You just happen to wear a uniform, right?
Yeah. And we noticed that. Obviously, people have come from different lived experiences, and they're here now in Canada. Yeah. And we notice a big change when we go and we pray in uniform at a mosque. Mm-hmm. You should see the impact that makes just standing beside a young kid during namaz, which is our prayers, just standing beside a kid, and this kid is just looking up to you. And I've seen that when I was in the mosque, and I was behind you, and there was a kid standing right beside you. Yeah. You should have seen the smile on this kid when he looked right beside you, and it makes a huge impact. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to educate our community on really what police is like over here, and change that, and try to change that perspective that they had maybe from their lived experiences back home.
That's right. And that's a good point, because a lot of the Muslim community, there is a big immigrant population that have immigrated to Canada from other places. And I can speak to myself, being of Indian background, the police in India are not your friend, right? And when it comes down to even my own parents, when I first told them I wanted to become a police officer, they weren't very happy about it.
No, neither were mine.
Because in our culture, the belief is if you can't do any other job, and if you're not, good at studying or doing well in school, you just become what's known as a jail guard. We call it a hawaldar.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the police in places like India and myself from Pakistan, unfortunately, there's a lot of corruption
There's a
when
lot of
there's
corruption,
not enough
absolutely.
money, and so that idea is when people come immigrate here. They think when I'm stopping them, they think that I'm going to take money or that, they're going to be in trouble. Like, it's at the end of the day, and that's why we're changing things.
It's
That's why
breaking
we're
that
trying to
stigma,
educate our community. We have an oath. We've given an oath, and we follow our core values, and that's, I would say, almost like 99.999%.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to educate our community on, and trust the police and be able to trust the police.
And I will say, so I'll speak to my experience as a neighborhood officer, because I
Right.
did that position for, like I said, for 7 years. And in the first, I'd say probably 2 years of me doing that position, people still were hesitant and apprehensive, even though I was there in the neighborhood every
From our
single
own community.
shift. From our own community.
okay.
So to give context, obviously, because not everyone knows where Thorncliffe Park is, it's in the Don Mills and Eglinton Road area, a very densely populated neighborhood. There's about 40,000 people living within a 1 kilometer radius. And to think of that population density and to think majority of them are from South Asian backgrounds, there's going to be a lot of people interacting with me on a daily basis, which is what used to happen. So when I worked there with my partner, Victor Cerruti, he joined up a few years after I had done that position. But in the first 2 years that I did that position, I found there was a big disconnect between myself and the community. Not because there was a lack of effort, but there was that apprehension from the community's part. So when I would walk into Tim Hortons, I would see parents grasp onto their child and pull them closer, and so that they wouldn't come and say hi to the police or whatever their thought process might have been, because whether it's fear, it's the fear of the unknown, or they may think that, hey, they might be like the cops back home, so we don't trust them. So there was a big disconnect. So I found it took years.
And you kind of look like one, no?
Look like
a police officer from back home.
no. I hear they're a lot shorter. So
Oh, that's right. You are very tall, actually.
I'm 5'12". So the amount of time that it took, and really for me, it was about repetition. It was about showing up over and over and over again. And it got to a point where people were no longer scared. Now they were curious. Yeah. They started looking at me and they said, the people would come up and they say, hey, why are you here? Why are you in the neighborhood?
Right.
What's going on? What's wrong? What are you here to solve? Who are you here to arrest? And I had to take a second and process what they were saying and asking, because I thought to myself, why would they assume I'm here for something? And then I realized, for me as a cop, my perspective is very different, because I know when I'm going into situations, I'm going because somebody called. Right. But as a neighborhood officer, you have to change your mindset, because you're no longer just a beat cop that's responding to calls. You're now there doing proactive policing. You're doing community outreach. And to me, that's a concept I understood because I'm the one doing the job. But to the community, they just see a uniformed police officer with a gun and other use of force equipment, and that was their perception, that police only show up when something has gone horribly wrong. Yeah. So we had to break that stigma. We had to say, no. We are here as cops. I'm here as a neighborhood officer, and I'll swear by that program because I got to do it for 7 years.
Well, you did really well, and that's how I knew you from the stuff that you were doing.
Yeah. So, and that's good feedback to hear, even from officers, right? But for the community to be able to see an officer show up to their neighborhood, not because there was an emergency and just doing it proactively, it really spoke to them and it really made a difference. And then that trust started building.
Did you find that it was dealing with our own community and attending mosques and being Muslim? Did it help?
It did. And I'll tell you why. Because
did it help build that trust with the community?
Yeah, so 53 Division is very diverse geographically, right? There are different parts. There's Forest Hill, there's Leaside, there's Thorncliffe Park. So many different communities, many different ethnic backgrounds, many different religious backgrounds. So it'd be interesting for me to go from one area of 53 Division to another to see how different people would react to the police showing up. So in Thorncliffe Park, for instance, when I would show up, there was that apprehension. But I'll tell you, because I understand the culture, the language, if I were to see somebody that was Muslim and I would say Assalamu alaikum, all of a sudden their tension level goes from up here right down. That's right. And there's this smile, they warm up, they ease up. That's right. You could tell physiologically there's an impact on them just based on those words alone.
They feel you're a brother.
they feel that, hey, this uniform doesn't matter anymore because
right.
this person just said assalamu alaikum, which means peace and blessings be with you. That's the Muslim greeting when you meet another Muslim. And it just goes to show that we have so much in common with each other, but it's just those preconceived notions that create that divide and that apprehension. And as soon as we take those barriers away, people are so much more relaxed and they realize, hey, we're all in this together, right? So I did find that was helpful, and I think the understanding, and that's why there's a big push with the Toronto Police to diversify the membership, to do make more of an effort to hire from minority communities, whether it be whether it's immigrants or if it's female officers.
Me and you have done a few campaigns already on employment.
Right.
So
and
we're mentoring a lot of our Muslim community, and not just Muslim, but South Asian as well. So and or again, anyone really that's interested in policing.
And social media has been huge for that, right? Because I can't think of a time when I was as a kid, I used to see the police, and I don't know that I had an opinion on the police because I'd never dealt with them outside of getting pulled over when I was an irresponsible motorcycle rider.
Right.
But outside of that, I had no other interactions with the police, so I didn't know enough to have an opinion. But then when I did start looking into policing and I thought there was an opportunity, I know there was a big push even when I applied in 2008 to diversify the membership, and it was a great opportunity, and it is very indicative of the direction that the Toronto Police Service is going in, to be more inclusive and representative of the populations that live in Toronto, right?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Growing up in Rexdale, it was just a rule of thumb. You see the police, you run. You know what I mean? And it's not like we were doing anything wrong. You know what I mean? It's just that maybe there's something that we're doing.
It's the cops.
It's the cops. Run, right? And that was the norm. In Rexdale, you see cops, you run. And if you get caught, there's nothing that we were doing wrong, but it was just a natural thing to do because, this is before 2005, we were afraid of the police. We were afraid that, hey, we're minorities and we don't know. We may not know the role of are we doing something wrong or are we not doing something wrong? Can we hang out at a park and just sit down and talk?
Yeah.
We had no idea. Was this illegal? Was it not illegal?
Yeah.
Right?
There's the fear of the unknown.
That's right. So we assume that, hey, if the cops are here, we must have been done something wrong. Let's get out of here, right? Because we don't want to end up going to jail. If my mom found out, that's it. It's game over for us.
You're going back to Pakistan, Harun.
That's right. So that was the thing about. And if you notice the change now, like 2005, 2008 are not much of a difference, only 3 years, but I noticed a huge push. Like I noticed my platoon from almost all, white to a multicultural platoon.
Yeah.
All within, I would say from 2005 on to maybe 2010.
Yeah.
Just within those 5 years.
Yeah.
It was a huge push.
And I think after 2010, there was a hiring freeze. So that's kind of why everything kind of went on a pause.
That's right.
It's not that we stopped after 2010 because we're still hiring.
That's right.
No, and the reason that I brought that up is because I recognize that when I was younger, when we were younger, a long time ago, because we're so old now.
I'm still young. I'm still 25. So
you're only as old as you feel, right? So I don't feel a day above 64. My back hurts. So what I realized is I never had the opportunity to just speak to a cop. Because I never had that relationship. I never had the opportunity.
Same.
And it was the same thing growing up. I thought to myself, the only time I would call the police is if I had an emergency. So where would I ever pick a cop's brain?
And even calling the police, we were afraid that if I'm going to call the police, maybe I'm going to get in trouble.
I'm going to get in trouble,
even though I'm asking for help.
That's right.
Maybe I'll get blamed for something that I did or didn't do, right? So it was always that fear.
Who hurt you, Harun?
I don't know what happened.
So what I realized is a lot of young people that are looking to join the job now, namely from our own community, and it's not limited to South Asians or Muslims. I do get a lot of people reaching out to say, hey, would you be willing to mentor me or provide some insight? I don't know where to start. And I'll give you a little backstory for myself. The reason why I do like doing this is because before I got hired with the Toronto Police Service, I knew nobody. I didn't know. I had no connections to the service. I don't have any family in the service.
Same, me and you, same.
Yeah. and for me, I didn't know where to start. And it just so happened that a friend of mine mentioned, hey, listen, I know a guy that I go to university with, and he's a cop. and he is currently working as a full-time cop, but he's also in university here doing this program.
Right.
And he said, why don't I connect the two of you guys and just have a conversation with him, pick his brain, see what he has to say, see if maybe he can give you some insight. So I said, okay, no problem. And I'll give you a shout out. This is for Shiraz Arshad, who I think he just made staff. So congratulations on that.
That's right. Yeah.
He was my mentor, and this is somebody I had never met before. Right. And he, for whatever reason, that's just the type of person he is. Out of the goodness of his heart, he decided to sit down, speak to me about it, mentor me, tell me what steps I need to take. And back then, the application was on paper. You'd have to write it out.
That's right.
You had to go down to 40 College Street, hand in the application by hand,
yeah.
right? Make sure you wear a suit. It was very different times. Now you apply online, and it was very, very different times back when those dinosaurs applied. But so he helped me with that process, and I am so eternally grateful for the time and effort that he put in to just give me that help that he never was obligated to, but he did it anyway. So all that to say, full circle, now when I have that opportunity,
I want to pay it forward.
Others. I want to pay it forward.
Exactly.
And if I can help even a single person out there, achieve whatever it is they're trying to achieve in terms of employment with TPS, then I'm more than happy to help in any way I can. So I found that that's been very good. So
for me, I was shopping at Dr. Flea's flea market.
Yeah.
And for the first time, I've seen a Desi police officer. So
what, sorry?
A Desi. So Desi meaning a South Asian police officer.
I know what that is.
So a South Asian police officer. Yeah. And I approached him. I was nervous because obviously he's a police officer, and I've never really spoken to a police officer before. So I approached him, and I told him, I go, listen, I'm interested in policing. And this officer had actually just come out of the employment unit.
Oh, okay.
And his name is Parm Rai. He's retired now. But he just gave me some advice, and he said, listen, it's possible. And I didn't think it was possible. Mm-hmm. And he just gave me that belief that, hey, you can do it too.
Yeah.
And that's all it took. He said, listen, I'll help you out. I never asked for his help.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it on my own because that's something that I wanted to do and achieve on my own. Yeah. Obviously, my parents weren't too happy with it at the time, but I told them, and they, they supported it at the end of the day. Yeah. And they were very proud when I graduated. Yeah. But just having that talk with that police officer that was similar to me, and gave me that hope that really convinced me to go forward. And alhamdulillah, 20 years later,
alhamdulillah, man.
this is me here, and I do the same now for others. Good. Right? Because that small little impact can change anyone's life.
Yeah. So, every contact matters.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
excellent, man. Yeah, and that's kind of like
now it's getting a little. Now we're getting a little sensitive. so
have any tissues here?
We should have a tissue box. No. So this whole podcast thing, we want to make it fun. Obviously, there are going to be some serious, sensitive topics, which is that's going to obviously affect us and maybe even our visitors. So it could get intense, but that's why me and Farhan are, as police officers, we know how to de-escalate. That's what we're trained to do, and hopefully things go well. And we have a huge lineup of people that we want to bring in.
There's no huge lineup.
I know,
like 3 people.
I know.
No, there are a lot of people that we would like to invite over that obviously have a lot of a wealth of knowledge and a lot of lived experience and perspective that they can provide. And the objective of this podcast isn't just for you and I to just talk about what we think. It's that we want to get the community's perspective to say, hey, what is it that's happening in the world? How is it impacting you as a citizen of Toronto? And what does that mean to you in terms of how we as police officers deliver services to you as a community member? So if there's something that we are doing that you think we can improve on, let's discuss.
That's right.
So we can at least brainstorm
and maybe we can explain why we cannot do certain things.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think that's the whole purpose, is the education piece.
The education
We're going to have people from hate crime come in and speak on hate crime, because a lot of people don't understand what is a hate crime.
That's right.
We've done a huge push after October 7th. We noticed our community does not report.
That's right.
It's underreported. Why? There could be so many different factors.
Many different factors.
It could be they're desensitized of being called certain slurs, and so these are the things that we want to discuss, and these are things of why it's important to report, and where does that lead to, right?
right,
So what impact does that lead to community members? And that's just an example of something of what we're going to bring in and discuss. So we have a big lineup. We have a big and it's going to take time. It's going to take time. It's not easy. It's our first podcast. We got the chai going, but let's see how it goes. So we're ready to do this.
Let's do this. Dealing with conventional issues in unconventional ways.
That's right.
Yeah.
See, it's a man of wise words.
And he's got the $1 million smile, so it's we do well together. But thank you so much for taking the time to listen. If you've made it this far, we truly love and appreciate you for it. I probably would have stopped 5 minutes in. And even that's a stretch. But no, this is truly it's a step in the right direction for us. We are excited about all the opportunities, the conversations, and just connecting with our community and seeing how we can do our business better so that it caters to the needs of our community. So stay tuned for more.
That's right.
Fun content.
And don't forget, subscribe. What do they usually say?
Subscribe,
and
turn your notifications on.
And leave your comments.
Comments,
and
yes. Comments are good.
And questions as well.
And please, people, don't be mean.
Professional.
Don't be mean. The internet is already a very, very dark place. Yeah. Make funny comments. Leave funny comments. Comments.
Yeah, we're good with comedy, but don't make it offensive because you will be blocked and it will be deleted. This is, we're good with criticism as long as it's legit. So
opinions, like we want to hear people's opinions, your thoughts, your feelings, but do it in a respectful manner, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of sensitivities for everyone that's reading those comments. It's not just us. We have no feelings. We're just robots. But in terms of other people that may get triggered by some of those comments, because there's a lot of hate online. I know I've been on the receiving end of a lot of it, and it sucks. It's like there's a lot of bullies out there, and we have no time or space for that. So please,
it won't be tolerated. We'll tell you straight up. It won't be tolerated. It will be deleted. So there's no point of it. But we'll accept criticism and comments and funny comments. We're all good with.
Yeah. And, we all go to the comment section first,
let's keep
right?
it real. So that's all I say. Let's keep it real.
All right. Until the next one.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Oh no, I didn't hit record.
Can you imagine? What do you think?
Let me turn it off.
Oh, so this is what the chai tastes like.